In a small, quiet village surrounded by bamboo forests, there was an old cemetery long abandoned by time. The villagers called it the Silent Graveyard because every night, only the sound of wind and rustling leaves could be heard. Until one night, the silence was broken by a scream coming from beneath the ground. It all began when Sarman, a newly appointed gravekeeper, was assigned to clean the old burial ground. While pulling weeds near a nameless tombstone, his shovel struck something hard. A rock? He thought. But as he dug deeper, a rotten stench filled the air, the smell of decaying flesh. The soil there was oddly soft, as if it had been freshly buried. Suddenly, a long, terrifying scream erupted from the grave. Sarman stumbled backward, his face pale as death. The ground he had just dug began to tremble, as if something beneath was trying to claw its way out. He ran back to his guard post in terror, but no one in the village dared to help. They said, "That's the grave of Mr. Garman, the old caretaker who vanished 7 years ago. People say he was buried alive." From that night on, every midnight the screams returned. Sometimes faint and sorrowful, sometimes loud and desperate, as though someone was begging to be freed. Villagers claimed to hear chains dragging across the tombstones, and a dark figure wandering among the graves, its head hanging low. One night, Sarman decided to return, carrying only a flashlight and a bottle of holy water. But when he reached the nameless grave, the tombstone was split in two, and the ground beneath it had opened like a gaping mouth. From the hole emerged a mud-covered hand reaching out to grab his leg. Sarman screamed and ran as fast as he could, but before he reached the cemetery gate, a whisper hissed right beside his ear, "It's your turn to keep watch down here." The next morning, villagers found Sarman's hat and flashlight at the gate, but his body was never found. And every Friday night from the direction of the old cemetery, the screams still echo, louder than ever. A week had passed since Sarman disappeared. The villagers tried to forget, but every Friday night the screams grew louder, echoing through the bamboo forest. One evening, Rena, Sarman's younger sister, arrived in the village. She refused to believe her brother was gone. "If no one dares to look for him," she said, "then I will." Carrying a lantern and Sarman's old notebook, she entered the graveyard just before midnight. The wind howled, and the air was thick with the smell of wet earth. Every step she took crunched against dead leaves and bones. She found the split tombstone, the same one where Sarman had vanished. Beside it, buried halfway in the dirt, was his shovel bent as if someone had tried to pull it down into the grave. As she examined the ground, the notebook slipped from her hands and fell open on a page, covered in frantic handwriting. "It's not a grave. It's a door. Something's trapped beneath. If you hear it scream, don't answer, or it will take your voice forever." Before Rena could react, the earth quivered, and the lantern flickered violently. A whisper rose from the hole soft, trembling like someone crying for help, greater than, "Rena, help me." "It's Sarman." Her heart stopped. It was her brother's voice. She leaned closer to the grave, tears in her eyes. "Brother? Is that you?" The voice replied, desperate and broken, "Please, pull me out." She reached down, fingers trembling. But when she touched the dirt, a cold, slimy hand shot up and grabbed her wrist. The ground split wider, and the voice changed, deep, monstrous, echoing, "Now you'll stay and scream with us." The lantern shattered. The graveyard fell into darkness. And from that night on, two screams echoed from the silent graveyard, one male, one female, crying, laughing, and whispering in the dark. The story of the silent graveyard spread beyond the village. People whispered about the siblings who vanished and the screams that echoed every Friday night. One day, a man named Adrian Weibo, a paranormal investigator and vlogger, arrived. He had explored haunted places all over Indonesia, but none had ever been as feared as this. "Two people disappeared," he said to his camera, "and tonight I'll find out why." He set up his equipment, cameras, recorders, and a thermal scanner near the broken tombstone. As the clock struck midnight, the air turned freezing cold. The bamboo leaves stopped moving. Then the first scream began, Hey, RJHH? It echoed across the cemetery, shaking the ground. Adrian leaned toward his microphone. Sound source detected? Below the grave. He began recording, his flashlight trembling in his hand. But when he replayed the sound, something horrifying happened. On the recording, there were words hidden within the scream. Slow, distorted, but unmistakable. "We are not dead." Adrian froze. "Not dead?" he whispered. Then his camera caught movement, a shadow crawling between the tombs, long and thin, moving on all fours. He turned the light toward it. For a split second, he saw a face half rotten, half alive, its eyes wide and mouth twisted. It was Sarman. But behind him, another figure appeared, Rena, her long hair soaked in mud, her lips moving silently. Adrian stumbled backward, screaming. No, stay back." His camera fell to the ground, still recording. The last thing it captured was Adrian being dragged into the open grave, his voice joining the others in a chilling chorus of screams. The next morning, villagers found his camera lying beside the grave, still running. On the screen, in white static letters, appeared a final message. 3 days after Adrian's disappearance, the village was drowning in fear. Every night, the screams from the cemetery became louder, not one voice, but many. It sounded as if an entire crowd was trapped beneath the soil, crying and laughing at once. Desperate, the villagers brought in Father Yosef, an old priest known for dealing with unholy disturbances. He arrived at dusk, carrying holy water, a wooden cross, and an old Bible wrapped in black cloth. "This ground," he whispered, "kneeling near the broken tombstone, has been fed with souls. Something beneath has awakened." He placed a recorder near the grave and began his prayer. The air instantly grew heavier. The smell of decay filled the air, and shadows moved even though the night was still. As Father Yosef recited verses, a voice interrupted him. It came from beneath the earth, deep, distorted, almost human. "You can't free them. They belong to me." The ground trembled. From the soil rose a black mist, thick as smoke but alive, swirling around the priest. Faces appeared in the mist, Sarman, Rena, Adrian, and countless others, all screaming silently, mouths open wide. Father Yosef poured holy water on the ground, shouting, "In the name of God, I command you show yourself." And then the earth split open. A massive hand, skeletal, covered in mud and roots, burst out of the grave, reaching for him. The priest dropped his cross and stumbled backward. The voice roared again, shaking the trees. "This is not a grave. It's my gateway." The mist engulfed him. The last thing he saw was the tombstone reforming itself, sealing the hole shut. When the villagers returned in the morning, they found Father Yosef's cross bent in half, lying beside the grave, but the priest himself was gone. That night, the screams didn't come from the graveyard anymore. They came from inside the villagers' houses. Since Father Yosef vanished, the village was no longer the same. The nights grew longer, the air colder, and strange whispers echoed inside every home. At first, people thought it was the wind, but soon the whispers began calling their names. "Rena, Sarman, help us." Children woke up crying, saying they saw mud-covered hands crawling out from under their beds. Animals refused to go near the cemetery. Even the birds stopped singing. Then one night a man named Booty, who lived closest to the graveyard, heard something scratching beneath his floorboards. It was faint at first, like nails dragging through wood. But then came the whisper, a woman's voice, trembling and wet. "It's dark down here. Let me out." Thinking it was a prank, Booty tore up a section of the floor. A cold wind burst out, carrying the stench of death. And in the dark gap below, 2 pale eyes stared back at him. He froze. Then a hand shot up, grabbing his face. The thing crawled out, its body thin and soaked with mud, its mouth wide open, Rena, but her jaw hung loose, moving unnaturally as she spoke in a deep, inhuman voice. He opened the gate. "Now the village belongs to us." Buddy's scream was the last sound the neighbors heard that night. By morning, his house was empty. The only trace left was a trail of mud leading to the cemetery, and on his wall, scrawled in black soil, "The ground is hungry." From that night on, every house near the grave began to shake at midnight. And if you put your ear to the floor, you could still hear them, hundreds of voices whispering from below, all chanting the same thing. The village was dying. Every night, another house fell silent. Doors left open, meals still warm on the table, but no one inside. Only trails of mud leading back toward the cemetery. By now, only a few survivors remained. Laras, a young teacher, and Pakhazen, the oldest man in the village. They hid in the schoolhouse at the edge of town, watching the fog roll in from the graveyard like a living thing. Laras whispered, trembling, "It's spreading. The ground. It's moving." Pakhazen nodded slowly. "It's the curse. I warned them years ago." He told her the truth, a secret buried with the village's founding. Long ago, the land had belonged to a man named Darman, the same gravekeeper who had vanished. When the village was built, the people had stolen his land and buried their dead on it, ignoring his warnings. Before he died, Darman swore an oath. "If my soil drinks another's blood, it will never sleep again." That night, the ground beneath the school began to breathe. The floorboards swelled and cracked as something pushed upward from below. A voice rose from the earth, dozens of voices merging into one. "We are the roots. We are the soil. You made us." Lara screamed as hands of mud burst through the floor, pulling desks and chairs into the ground. Pakhazen held his rosary and shouted prayers, but the mud swallowed him whole, dragging him down with a horrible crunch. Laras ran into the street, but the village was gone. Every house had sunken halfway into the ground, roofs twisted, walls breathing like lungs. And in the distance, where the graveyard once stood, a massive mound of earth pulsed like a heartbeat. From inside it came voices, Sarman, Rena, Adrian, Yosef, Budi, all whispering in unison. "The living and the dead are one now." Laras fell to her knees, sobbing. The soil beneath her feet cracked open, whispering her name. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was a face forming in the dirt, smiling. The next morning, the fog cleared. The village was gone, replaced by a silent field of fresh graves. And if you walk through it at night, sometimes the ground still moves. And if you listen closely, you can hear them whisper. 50 years passed. The old road leading to the village had vanished beneath vines and moss. No map showed its name anymore, as if it had never existed. One rainy evening, a group of university researchers arrived, led by Dr. Andras Suryawan, a historian studying vanished settlements. Locals had warned them not to go. "The land there eats the living," one said, but they laughed it off. After hours of walking through the misty forest, they found it. A vast field of uneven soil and crooked tombstones. No houses, no sound, just the smell of wet earth and the faint echo of crying carried by the wind. "Strange," said one of the students. "These graves? They look new." Dr. Andron knelt, brushing away the mud on a tombstone. His flashlight revealed the inscription. "Laras minus 1975. He frowned. "That's impossible." This village was abandoned before that year. Then one of the students, Rico, called out from a distance. "Sir, there's something here." He pointed to a large mound in the center of the field, a hill that seemed to pulse softly, like it was breathing. They approached. The air turned icy cold. Their equipment began to fail, cameras flickering, recorders crackling. Then, through the static, a voice came. It wasn't a human voice. It was a blend of hundreds whispering together, "Welcome back." The ground remembers. Suddenly, the mound split open, revealing a pit of black mud bubbling violently. Rico screamed as hands shot out, dragging him inside. Dr. Andra and the others tried to run, but the earth itself moved, swallowing their footsteps, pulling them down one by one. The last thing the camera recorded was Dr. Andra's terrified face as he whispered, "It's alive. The whole land is alive." Then the feed cut to black. Weeks later, a rescue team found only their broken equipment, and dozens of fresh graves that hadn't been there before, all marked with new names. And in the center of the field, one new tombstone stood higher than the rest. It read, "Dr. Andras Suryawan, Keeper of the Ground." Every full moon, travelers passing near that area claimed to hear voices from beneath the soil. Not screams this time, but laughter. laughter that grows louder when you stop to listen. Because now, the grave is not just in the ground, it's everywhere. And that's where the story ends, for now. The earth has swallowed the living, and their screams have become part of the whispering night. No one knows if the curse is truly over, or if it's simply waiting for another soul to arrive. So if one night you're walking alone, and the ground beneath your feet begins to tremble, don't stop. Don't look back. Because maybe the sound you hear isn't the wind, but the one still screaming beneath the ground.